We begin with Your Vote 2020. A record number of absentee ballots is holding up efforts to tally votes all across the state, but we are seeing some numbers come in, some results as well. You can find a complete list scrolling at the bottom of your screen. You can also find that at wishtv.com. Right now, let's take a look at the big race of the night, Indiana's 5th congressional district, a district that includes parts of Marion County and Hamilton County. Victoria Spartz has won the Republican nomination.
Meanwhile, as for the Democrats, Christina Hale clinching that nomination. We have team coverage for Your Vote 2020. We'll get to Richard Essex in a moment. He's in downtown Indianapolis, where election officials are busy counting. Right
now, let's get straight to News 8's Julia Dang, who's digging deeper into that 5th district race. Called just about 45 minutes ago. Julia, good evening.
Good evening, Kylie. Yeah, the candidate who contributed the most amount of money to her own campaign has secured the Republican nomination. Indiana State Senator Victoria Spartz now advancing and facing off against Democrat Christina Hale in the general come November. Now, that is expected to be a competitive race. Spartz has branded herself as a hardworking fighter for freedom. She immigrated to the United States from Ukraine 20 years ago and has played up her unique awareness of American liberties, along with her background in business, farming, finance, and local Republican politics. Now, I talked to her just a couple minutes ago, and I asked her if the money she contributed to her campaign played a significant role in her win.
Campaigns are expensive, and you have to deliver, the message. If I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to, to fight for Hooters in my district, you have to put my money where my mouth is. And this country give me everything.
And we talked to Beth Henderson as well, who came in second in a crowded field of 15 Republican candidates. Both she and Spartz tell me it was an election day unlike any other, and they both discussed challenges created by COVID-19 when it came to campaigning and fundraising. For now, reporting live, Julia Dang, Wish TV and wishtv.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook.
Thank you, Julia, with that Republican side. Now let's get to the Democratic side. Christina Hale claiming victory. She released a statement to News 8. It says, in part, I have a proven record of working across the aisle to solve problems and deliver results. In Congress, I'll work with anyone and everyone to make health care more affordable, create good-paying jobs right here in Indiana, and support our small businesses as they fight to recover.
In Marion County, only 9% of vote centers have been counted. It could be Thursday before we have full results. teammates Richard Essex in downtown. And Richard, election officials have a lot to sort through this evening.
Well, the polls closed here at 6 o'clock, but at 7 o'clock, there were still people voting. And at 8 o'clock, there were still people in line at several locations all around the county. Now, it's going to be a long night for the Marion County Election Board because there are 100,000 absentee ballots out there that are coming in tonight, and those are extremely time-consuming to count. The last person to vote at the downtown polling location is Tisha Sims. When News 8 caught up with her, she'd been in line for about 30 minutes. With the change in polling locations, she said she almost didn't make it.
I work on the east side. I live on the north side.
Sims and her newfound voting friend, Natasha Rankin, brought up the end of the line.
It's a lot slower than I expected, to be honest.
Rankin is a former British citizen voting in her first presidential primary. Once these two made it in the room to vote, the process took about 10 minutes.
It felt great. I'm glad I made it in.
From start to finish, the entire voting process, including standing in line, took them about an hour. Marion County has consolidated polling locations, so the lines didn't tell the whole story.
The lines were longer because we had less voting locations than usual, and I think we're at about, our count right now, we're at about 20% turnout. And we expect it to go up as we continue to process the absentee ballots.
Absentee voting, the bane of the democratic process. Marion County is expected to count a record number of absentee ballots this year, and counting these ballots is extremely time-consuming. On these tables, poll workers are matching the absentee ballots with the application.
The envelopes are opened, the ballots are pulled out by hand. The signatures are compared and reviewed by hand by a bipartisan team.
Before the ballot signatures can be compared, election workers have to go through huge stacks of absentee ballot applications and find the matching application. Then at that point, the ballot is ready to be counted. it could be Thursday or later before all these ballots are counted.
We'll know tomorrow whether we need to count Thursday.
Another kink in the process is social distancing requirements. They only have so much room in the building where they're counting these ballots, so they can only allow so many people inside the building. Plus, they're shorthanded, so it could be at least Thursday, maybe even Friday before we have all the results in. In downtown Indianapolis, Richard Essex for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
Richard, thank you very much. Now, to help us navigate this election and these results, we welcome in our political analysts.
Yeah, we've got Republican Pete Seat here and Democrat Laura Beck joining us virtually this evening. Thank you for being here, spending some time with us. First, Pete, I want to start with you. Of course, the 5th district race we're watching very closely. This is a seat that has a lot of money riding on it, vacated by Congresswoman Susan Brooks. Is this a seat that you feel is vulnerable to lose to the Democrat Party? I think we're having a hard time with his mic.
Audio.
Right. Can we hear Pete? Sorry about that. We're not able to hear you. Laura, can we hear you at all?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
This is going to be an unfair debate right here, I got to tell you. So I don't know if we want to sort this out until we can hear from Pete as well. Producers, you tell us what you want to do right here. We can talk to Laura for a second, or we can maybe speed through the process.
This is my dream, being able to talk over Pete's seat and him just being mute. Oh, shoot, you're back. Oh, darn it.
Okay, oh, there he is. Okay, thanks for hanging with us, everybody at home. Okay, Pete, you heard my question, so if you can just start your answer over there. Just how vulnerable is this seat?
Yeah, I think Democrats need to temper their glee when it comes to this district. Regardless of who wins in November, the member is only going to serve constituents in this district as it's drawn now for a mere 2 years before we have a completely redrawn district. But by and large, what happens in November is going to be dictated by the national climate. It's going to be dictated by whether or not President Trump can bring suburban women back into the Republican fold. It's going to be dictated by whether or not Joe Biden can bring Bernie Sanders supporters on board his campaign who are concerned that he's not going to represent their interests in the White House. And I think that's going to have a top-down effect on what happens here in Indiana.
Laura, you have a response to that?
Oh, I always have a response to Pete. I actually love how he teed it up, because that sounds like somebody who knows that they may not hold on to the seat. I think this will be one of the most watched races nationally. It is going to have a lot of money behind it. What I found fascinating about some of the dynamics as well is that this is a district that Joe Donnelly won in 2018. And the way that Victoria Spartz ran her television ads, I don't expect her necessarily to move back and tack to more of a moderate position. And that's something that's going to play very well in that district. Christina is collaborative. She is bipartisan. She works across party lines, and she does an excellent job listening to her constituents. She's the type of person we want to send to Washington. And I think she is going to be very well received in that district, particularly by women, frankly, who are very, very not in favor of Donald Trump right now.
Sit tight right there, Laura. We'll start with you with this next question here. The pandemic, how has it played a role during this election cycle? Has it hurt or helped any of the candidates?
I think it's made campaigning just absolutely incredibly difficult. And Pete, I'm sure you've got some much more insightful comments on this than I do, but I think it's made it really hard when you consider that you have to go from retail politics, where you work with voters, to actually doing virtual fundraisers instead of meeting with your donors, to doing everything virtually. I mean, every little thing you do had to be done virtually. And they had to pivot very quickly in a campaign where issues were pivoting very quickly. Pete, you probably have some different thoughts as well, though.
Yeah, well, I think self-funding candidates tend to have an advantage regardless, but it's no panacea, as we see across the state and across the country. But in this particular environment where knocking on doors and pressing the flesh is verboten because of the coronavirus, cutting a check like Victoria Spartz did for $750,000 is really what's going to seal the deal when you can't retail politic, as you mentioned. I think that hurt a lot of candidates who are counting on going to Lincoln Day dinners and getting to know voters and going to town halls. They didn't expect that they would be sitting like we are now in our homes doing everything over Zoom.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch, and it will continue to be interesting to see the results. Any other big races, Pete, that you have your eye on right now?
Yeah, keeping an eye on the 1st Congressional District up in my home part of the state, Lake County, the northwest part of the state. You know, Tom McDermott, the mayor of Hammond, had the cash. He was able to outraise most of his competitors combined, had a lot of outside money come in. But latest numbers actually have him in 2nd place to a trustee there, Frank Mervyn, who was endorsed by the outgoing Congressman Pete Visclosky. So if that turns out to be the final result, it shows that Congressman Pete still has some juice.
Yeah, I agree with Pete on that one. That was one definitely we were watching as well. Mervan was also endorsed by the steelworkers too. And then Mara Candelaria Reardon was also in that race as well. And she earned an endorsement from the National Latino and Hispanic Caucus as well. So it's that was a colorful primary and definitely one that we've all been keeping an eye on too.
All right, Laura, Pete, we really appreciate your time, and I know that we'll be seeing you again this week, hopefully for the conventions and those that ensue after. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Now to more preliminary results coming into our newsroom. We start with the Republican race for the 7th Congressional District here in Indiana. Susan Smith winning this one, 44% of the vote. That's with 50% reporting at this point. Andre Carson taking a strong lead here. This is the U.S. Representative District 7 race on the Democratic side. 91% of the vote for Representative Carson.
And our election coverage does continue online. There you will find the latest results. Those are also scrolling at the bottom of your screen. We'll have reaction from winners as well. That is all there for you at wishtv.com.
And remember to catch both state conventions right here on Wish TV. The Democratic convention is this Thursday. The Republicans hold their convention June 18th. Both start at 5:30. Watch them live right here on Wish TV.